Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassett, your host from the Salisbury Independent newspaper. It's a big day here at PAC 14. They're all big because it's election season. And in election season, we talk about the election a lot. And today we have the director of the Wycomico County Board of Elections, Anthony Gutierrez, is here with us to talk about how to vote. Thank you, Anthony, for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So it seems simple. Just go vote. But it's not simple necessarily. Do I still have time to register to vote?
Yes, we are a week and a half away from the regular registration deadline of Tuesday, October 16th, and I have to qualify that these days because we do have same-day registration during the early voting period if you miss that Tuesday, October 16th deadline.
Okay. Early voting has gained in popularity. I don't like it. I just think we should all show up at one time, but people seem to like this early voting. When does that begin?
Thursday, October 25th, for 1 week through Thursday, November 1st. So it runs the 8-day period, including Saturdays and Sundays. We're back at the Midway Room at the Civic Center from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day.
Right. So it's at the one location in the county. It's not all the polls aren't open in the county. It's at that one location.
Yes.
And everyone can show up there. And there's candidates are there. There's signs. There's lots of information. So it works out really well. How many machines do you have set up for that?
Well, we have a couple of machines, and we're able to put more electronic poll book check-in stations, so we definitely enjoy being there, and we get great support from the Civic Center staff every time.
Right. And there's rarely a line. It seems very easy to vote.
Well, certainly in a presidential general, there's long lines, and that's
for
the
early voting?
interest. During early
Yeah.
voting also.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
for a gubernatorial general, we don't expect quite that long, but certainly longer than the primary election this past June.
Right. How does that work? Do you get a significant amount of more voters for the presidential years?
Oh, definitely. I believe we hit 70% 2016 November, but we're expecting 65% for this November.
Right. And primary numbers are still low?
Primary, unfortunately, it was historically low in Wycomico, about 17%. Normal is 30 to 35%. But a lot of candidates were running uncontested in the primary,
Right.
and school had just let out a couple of weeks before, so I think those were a couple of factors to that.
Now, someone said to me one day, why don't those people at the election board try to get more candidates involved and get more voters to show up? That's just not your job.
Right. We administer the election and leave the political side and the generating the turnout on the candidates and the parties. We do what we can as far as voter outreach and trying to pique voter interest, but we have a lot more things to worry about with now security measures and just setting up the polling places and getting election workers to be there.
Right. The other thing is the ballot's complicated across the county. You guys mail out some things that explain to voters what's going on. What do you mail to people's houses?
Well, starting today, actually, the large sample ballot mailing will go out, and that'll take place over the next couple of weeks. Because of Monday's Columbus Day holiday, most voters probably won't start getting it until next week. Certainly, if they haven't received it by Friday, October 19th, we'd really like them to contact us and let us know. The easiest way for us is for them to email us at election@wycomicocounty.org, and that's an indication to us that that sample ballot may have gone to the wrong address for them, but it contains a reminder of their polling place, what they're going to see on the ballot, early voting information, absentee, etc. Just a lot of information in that mailing.
Right. So look at it. It's very helpful because it is confusing. Like your neighbor right across the street might be in another district and you don't even realize where you are sometimes.
That's right. And another thing about a gubernatorial year is that we have legislative and councilmanic districts coming into play. So it's very important that voters find out which location they're supposed to go to, because that's where they'll get the right ballot with the right contest for them. And early voting is an example of where we have all the ballot styles in the county. If they exercise that option, we're better able to serve them.
Now, when you get to the polling place, I've always been impressed with how clean and organized it is. Everyone has a responsibility. It reminds me of that scene from the movie Casino where everyone has a different job to be watching somebody else, basically. But how's that set up? How does that work?
Well, we need 300 to 400 people from the community to come out and work at those 31 locations spread across the county on Election Day and those 8 days of early voting. So we're always looking for members of the community to volunteer. Actually, you do get paid $250. That's not a bad stipend,
For the
I
day?
don't think, for the day.
Okay.
But we need people, and we're certainly always looking for them. So if they want to give us a call, 410-548-4830, or email us again, election@wycomicocounty.org, we can certainly add people to the list at this point.
A lot of talk about gerrymandering and how the districts are drawn. It's an issue in the state house. It's an election issue with the governor's election. You all don't have anything to do with how the lines are drawn. That's all done by legislators.
That's correct. Each legislative body gets to determine their own districts, and we just implement them with the election administration process.
Yeah, that computer programming now just fascinates me, where you can push a button and it draws the lines wherever to get the right number of Republicans, Democrats, men, women, all this stuff within the right district. It's just fascinating.
Sure, you can get programs now and you can do it at home on your own computer.
Right.
So it leaps and bounds in the past 15, 20 years.
Yeah. This year, for the first time, an elected school board
Yes.
in Wycomico County.
Right.
How is that added complication?
Oh, it's not a whole lot. I mean, it's just added into the mix. In this November election, voters will see 20 candidate contests and 4 ballot questions. We have 2 statewide constitutional amendments and 2 local Wycomico questions. The first statewide question is regarding the use of commercial gaming revenue for public education. The second one is whether to allow same-day registration and voting on election day itself. Wycomico Local Question A is regarding administrative appointments and the confirmation of those appointments, and Local Question B is regarding the transfer of appropriations and capital assets and interfund borrowing.
Right now, 2 years ago, there were like 11 or 13 local initiatives, and I made fun of that because people were spending a lot of time standing there voting. They had a lot to vote on. I thought it was just too much for the people to have to deal with on election day. So I think 2 or 4 make a lot more sense.
It will be easier for the voters. However, even those 4 questions are going to trigger a 2-page ballot once again, like in 2016. So
Right.
we've got a lot of points in the process at the polling place to alert voters to please take both page 1 and page 2 over to the scanning unit. It's better for our purposes, whether they vote all the contests or not, to have them run that through the scanner. And we're fortunate in that we're not like Prince George's County, which goes all the way down to local question K, and we believe it's an unprecedented 3-page ballot in Maryland. So,
What about all these people who want to say there's voter fraud? We have the paper ballot system, so there's a backup, there's a recorded record. But what do you say to people about the idea that the elections aren't clean?
well, again, for me, it goes back to the use of 300 to 400 local citizens coming out. So those are your friends, your neighbors, your family members that are working the polls at those locations. There are only 6 full-time staff members in our office, and so there's no way we can cover 31 places, and it's not designed for us to do that. We need members of the community, and by law we're required to try to get an equal number of Democrat, Republican, and a few unaffiliated, third-party election judges to oversee the process. And by far across the county, we have teams. They're not one side watching the other. They're working together as a team, again, to prevent those threats or what have you. We have security measures, we have processes in place, and we're always there to support them. And that's the key to me, are the Wycomico poll workers that we have.
But the votes just don't go into space. There is a documented record somewhere.
That's right, and there's a chain of custody from the polling places back to our office, all the way up to the state board with the transfer of results. So again, we do have those measures in place. And another thing we're very grateful to the taxpayers for is our new location. We're at 345 Snow Hill Road. We just got a phone call this week that unfortunately in the new Verizon phone book, it has us on Tillman Road, but 345 Snow Hill Road. All the voters who have come in to get services have shown positive responses, and our election judges are training there, so that saves money for the county not having to rent off-site space. So just a great facility that we have now with more security measures.
It is the old paint building there, and it is great. It's easy access, and I know the county executive was in. He's very proud that he got that done.
And we're very grateful to the county and, again, to all the taxpayers for that.
There's some controversy there for a while about where to keep the voting machines, but now you have a place.
That's right, and we hope to be there long term. There's talk right now of upgrading our electronic poll books, maybe for 2020, might have to wait till 2022 depending on the funding, but we're always looking to improve our services to the public.
Right, now is that a state thing or a county thing in terms of deciding what kind of machines we're all going to use?
It is a state thing. Maryland is a statewide system for both voter registration and voting system, and so we're all tied together, which benefits counties the size of Wicomico. Montgomery, Prince George's, the Baltimore County and City pay the bulk of that, and we pay our share, but it's prorated on voting age population.
Do the paper ballots live in your shop for a while?
Yes, under federal regulations for a federal election, we're required to keep the documentation, including the voted ballots, for 22 months. And since we have the 1st Congressional District, every 2 years, all of our elections that we do are federal elections.
Right. How do you feel about the same-day registration idea that you're not registered, you just wake up, you're like, hey, I'm going to go vote today, and you just go in and register? Is that a good thing?
Well, it has positives for both the voters who may have missed that October 16th deadline. They can still go to early voting and take care of it, because if they don't do that option at early voting and they wait until Election Day, now they're not in the poll book, or they've got different information. They go to another line, possibly do provisional ballot, which is a lot of extra paperwork, a lot more time spent for the judges to process that. It comes back to our office. Our local board has to canvass all those provisional ballots and do research and all, versus going in under same-day rules for early voting and possibly for Election Day. Change it right there on the spot, vote, and your vote is cast and counted right there.
What do you say to these people who want to allege voter fraud all the time, that undocumented people come in, people without the IDs come in? What do you tell them? I just don't think it's possible, but what do you say?
Well, at the local level, we're only able to affect certain things. I mentioned that we're on a statewide system for voter registration and voting equipment.
You come in, they look you up in the book. If you're not in the book, do you get to vote?
Yes, again, under federal rules, if there's a problem, it's kind of a fail-safe that federal legislation allows you to cast a provisional ballot. However, we do the research after Election Day, and we find in the record, number one, were you registered? Number two, did we get any kind of documentation to upgrade your address, or what the situation is? And many times we go to the canvass after the election, the week after, and we say to the Board of Canvassers, we find no record of this person, or whatever the situation, recommend to reject that ballot. So you have a federal right to cast a ballot under provisional statutes, but not, we won't find out till the next week whether that's going to be counted or not.
Right. What about the intimidation factor? I don't find it intimidating. Maybe I did when I first started. I just feel like it's part of the democratic process, and I love it so much I don't feel intimidated, but I guess people do feel intimidated about voting.
We do get a couple of calls, and I did take a couple of calls during the June primary. Reports that voters felt intimidated by various things, and we send out our board members and board attorney as needed to go investigate. We've got law enforcement available if there's actions that need to be taken, but certainly a lot of people have strong feelings, not only about the candidates, but about the processes. As you say, some like early voting, some do not. So I think it's people taking ownership of the process, and those strong feelings show that they're concerned, and we want to respond to those concerns. Bipartisan, respond to every citizen and follow up with them.
What about language barriers?
Wicomico County is not covered under, I believe it's Section 203 of the Voting Rights Act, so we're not required to provide other language materials like other counties are. I believe Montgomery County is covered under that.
Does it come up as an issue? People come, they want to vote, they can't communicate?
We have a statute that says a voter can bring anyone to assist them, so normally that's what happens. Sometimes we may get someone on the phone. The chief judges are given cell phones for communication purposes, and they might call us, and we have some avenues that we can put them in contact. Again, that's not required, but it's something we try to do, and funding also plays into that too.
People all the time, after they vote that day, you see them on social networking. The machine broke on me, this didn't go right. All these things that you just know aren't true. Or it's an exaggeration, or it's user error. How do you deal with that stuff?
We certainly want to have a positive experience for every voter. We want them coming back over and over. And so again, whenever we get a call, we do the investigation, we try to take care of it.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and On One. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.